Continuing our reading in the World and Thorinn by Damon Knight, Chapter 7, Section 6. Thornton woke, feverish, and plastered sky moss over his wounds with hands that could barely hold it. He heard himself raving and woke again, listening for a voice that had just fallen silent. He fumbled for the light box in his wallet. His hands were weak and sore, but he got the light box out and managed to transfer a bit of moss from each compartment to the other. He woke again, knowing that he would live, and that he had passed into manhood by giving and receiving blows in battle. There were 2 deep wounds in the back of his left hand, passing between the tendons and coming out at the palm. They were closed now, but the skin around them was an angry color for a finger's breadth. The wound in his other hand was shallower but more painful, a ragged tear slanting upward through the rest of his palm. There were puncture wounds in his chest, back, sides, and buttocks. The wound in his belly had closed, and skin all around it was red and hot to the touch. His eye was still swollen, but now he could see with it, and this, except for the nick on his leg that he had done himself, was all the tale of his wounds. In time to come, he would be proud of these scars, but he would always know that he had been sick with fever and fear when he got them. He was weak and very hungry. He ate some cheese from his wallet and drank some more water, and presently vomited it up again and slept. When he woke, still weaker, he ate again, and this time kept the food down. As time passed, he grew to dislike the sweet stench of his sickness. He undressed and bathed himself as well as he could in the water from the jug and felt a little better. He got up and explored the passage for a dozen ells in either direction, coming back to open the shield and drop his orders into the dark world below. "Go down," said the voice, but he was too weak to obey. And when he closed the shield again, the voice stopped. When he woke up again, he walked a little further, and the next time still further, until he came to the end of a passage where it curved upward and became a steep ascending shaft, from which a faint current of air breathed in his face. He went back, ate, and slept again. When he got up, groaning with stiffness, he followed the shaft upward, until after some 30 ells it broke into a larger tunnel. Lights came on in vast, swooping arcs over his head as he rose, and the silent display was so gigantic that he nearly ducked in terror as he had done before. He went back to the passage below, ate the last of his cheese, slept, and woke again. He was very hungry. He opened the shield in the daylight below. "Go down!" And he must, to get food. He thought of leaving some mark in the sky so that he could find the place again. He reached for the thong that should have been around his calf, but it was not there, and he remembered that he had left them both in the demon's house. He took up the cord instead and made a heavy knot in one end. Holding the cord, he opened the shield and dropped through. As he fell, the shield turned. He supported himself for a moment by his fingertips on the edge just before it closed, and pulled down all but the knotted end of the cord. As he let go, the shield closed on the cord and Thornton hung from it, then reached around and took a grip of the sky. He swung out and hung for a moment, breathing and blinking in the glare. He saw the tree in the distance with its crown of branches and the dark bulge of the demon's house between them. He was suddenly certain he could not get that far. He swung toward it in trembling haste until he was well over the tree, then let go and dropped. The branches came up like him, under him like a bed, and he was content to sprawl there, eyes closed, until his breathing was better. The tree below and around him was a tangle of limbs and branches, creepers, vines, and other plants growing all anyhow. He dropped to the next level, where there were some red berries on a vine, but they were so bitter that one taste was enough. A little way below he found a shaggy, dark fruit like the one he had seen before, but not half so big. It was less than 2 ells long. He found a convenient perch and stabbed into it. Under the dry leafy shell was a skin of the thickness of 2 fingers, and under this a pulpy greenish-brown fruit. Having split the rind as far down as he could reach, Thornton carved out a segment of the fruit and sampled it. It was at once sweet and tart, and made him avid for more. His hands were trembling. He cut out another section and ate that and another until his hunger was gone. Then he cut a larger piece, wrapped it well in leaves, and put it in his wallet, and still what he left behind was enough to have fed 100 men. He climbed to the top of the branch and saw his way past the crown of the tree and the demon's house to the cord that hung from the sky. As he neared the house, he thought of the bundles hanging under the roof tree and was minded to go in and take a few, for they might be food, and he had nothing with him to eat but the fruit he had just cut from below. He leaped up into the brown dome, but when he felt for the cut he had made before, he found that it had been sealed up from inside. He made another beside the first, spread the edges apart, glimpsed the pole below, and dropped. He landed on a pole and clung to it a moment, trying to hear past the beating of his heart. There was no stir below. He felt the cords around the pole and began to pull up one bundle after another without troubling to open them, only cutting the cords and tying them together in pairs in order to hang the bundles over the pole again until he was ready for them. When he had as many bundles as he could easily carry, that is to say 6, for the smallest was as big as his head, and the largest 4 times that size, he began to think of his lost possessions, his leg thongs and the cloth with which he had left all his treasures, except for some jewels in the magic jug. He did not indicate the box in this account, for it had betrayed him once, and that was enough. He squatted on the pole, looking down and listening. His eyes were now so accustomed to the dimness that he could make out a faint glow here and there. A vague bulk to one side must be the topmost platform, and remembering that this was empty, he dropped to it and paused to listen again. He heard the sound of faint, steady breathing below. With sword in hand, he lowered himself to the next platform and saw the bodies of demons lying sprawled all about him. By their size and number, he knew these for the males. He saw their sharp sticks leaning in bundles against the wall. The next platform was that of the children and females, and below that, the lowest platform, with nothing on it but baskets and mats. From this he dropped to a pole, and so to the bottom. The floor of the chamber was deserted, except for one old female who lay near the wall and did not stir. In the gloom, something hung from the lowest pole, with which at first he did not recognize. Then he saw that it was the talking box. He was afraid it might speak to him, but it did not. He prowled around the wall of the chamber, turning over scraps of rubbish, feeling inside baskets and under mats. And that's the end of section 6.